Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier session related to capital budgeting or investment decisions, we discussed about the building up of cash flows, how to ascertain and compute the cash flows from the available information, particularly the timing of cash flows, three phases: initial cash outlay, including any blockage of working capital, additional working capital requirements. Then project cash flows, which will generally represent the cash inflows or the benefits that are going to be derived from the investment. And then terminal cash flows are end of the life cash flows, generally consisting of salvage value with any related tax treatment of the capital gain or loss. And most importantly, the working capital released at the end of the life of the asset or project. And some of the core items, whether they are relevant or irrelevant in the computation of cash flows, also we discussed. Sunk costs are irrelevant, opportunity costs are relevant, only incremental cash flows have to be taken into consideration, not the ones which are already there anyway, irrespective of whether the decision is taken or not. And also, very importantly, the depreciation tax shield concept, which is an important aspect while calculating the project cash flows, normally during the life of the project. And not only that, another important consideration also is relevant to be remembered well, that is, financing costs shall be ignored while building the cash flows. So with this background of first section of this chapter, which was building of cash flows or estimating the cash flows, ascertaining the cash flows, now let us move on to section 2 of this chapter. That is basically about the techniques which are going to be applied so that finally a decision can be taken. Broadly, these techniques can be classified into two categories. One is traditional techniques or non-discounting techniques. We can call them as non-DCF techniques. Non-DCF techniques means discounted cash flows are not considered there, non-discounting techniques. In other words, time value of money is ignored. Those are only two techniques. One is payback period and the second one is accounting rate of return. We'll come to them later. They are relatively simpler techniques. But major focus of this chapter, even from examination point of view, will be on the time adjusted or discounted cash flow techniques. We can call them as DCF techniques. These are modern techniques, scientific, because they consider time value of money also. They take the time value of money also into consideration. What are these techniques? One is NPV, net present value. Profitability index is only a kind of extension of NPV technique. IRR is a very important technique. And modified IRR is only again an extension of IRR. Discounted payback period is a little variation to the original non-discounted regular payback period. So payback period and discounted payback period concepts will be same, but only difference is in case of payback period we will take only the normal cash flows, estimated cash flows, not discounting them. In case of discounted payback period we will take discounted cash flows. That is the only difference. But remaining things of computation, interpretation, selection criteria, all of them are more or less same for payback period and discounted payback period. We can learn both of them at one shot later. But major focus here, as far as this chapter is concerned, will be on two things. One is NPV, second one is IRR, net present value and internal rate of return method. Both of them are DCF techniques, as we know that already from the list of the techniques, and both of them use time value of money also in their computations. Of course, in real life also, both of them are very commonly used, very regularly used. In general, they are used in conjunction. So, yes, there are differences between the interpretation of NPV and IRR techniques, but still, in real life situations, both of them are used very widely. So, majorly NPV and IRR are the core techniques that we are going to learn as part of discounted cash flow techniques, DCF techniques, are modern capital budgeting techniques, we can say. And one of the common things, of course, in all the DCF techniques is definitely we should have some discount rate. What is this discount rate? It is the rate at which we have to discount the cash flows. Why we have to discount the cash flows? Again, applying the concept of time value of money. Because these cash flows are not occurring now, they are occurring later. Let us say if they are occurring in future, at the end of first, second, third, fourth or fifth years. Normally, if nothing is mentioned, cash flows are assumed to be earned or they are assumed to be occurring at the end of the year. So, at the end of first year, second year, third year, fourth year or fifth year, whatever the cash flows are going to come or occur, they will not have the same value. They will have a lesser value as present value. So what we need to do, we need to discount these cash flows with a multiplication of PVIF, present value interest rate factor. Though the name is interest rate factor, we can just call it as discount factor. That is the discount rate applied when we get discount factor. That multiplication of discount factor with the future cash flows will give us present value of the cash flows. Then a question might come, what about the cash flows which occur now? Naturally, cash flows which occur now, the present value of them will be same as they are. If you have to remember the discounting formula for any year, it is 1 divided by 1 plus r to the power of n. So whatever this is, 1 divided by 1 plus r, whatever the rate may be, r is the discount rate. If n is 0, anything to the power of 0 is 1. 1 divided by 1 is 1. So what is the present value of 1 rupee now? 1 rupee. There is no difference. So for 0th year, or we can call it as beginning of first year, or we can call it as now, where in general there will be cash outlay. The present value of that will be equivalent to the cash flows itself, because the discount factor is equal to 1. So PVIF for 0th year is always 1. But PVIF for the future years, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or whatever the number of years that may be given in the question, that will be definitely less than 1. How much will that be? That depends upon R. So what is this R? That is the discount rate, and that is in general the desired rate of return on the investment. That's a very broader term. For understanding purposes, we have to consider that as the required rate of return or desired rate of return for an organization on the investment. What is their desired rate of return? How do they determine that? Will they have some random number in mind? I want 40% return, I want 22% return. It is just impossible to have any random number just like that. Yes, there will be a scientific basis, but that scientific basis, whatever it is not the subject matter of capital budgeting. So here we should start with a basic premise that R is known. Known means it will be given in the question. That how that R is taken? That R can be taken in general as the weighted average cost of capital, but that is from the practical perspective. If weighted average cost of capital is calculated for a company, that is generally the bare minimum R. That is the bare minimum requirement that any company desires as a return on its investments. So that is the required return on investment Will it be always weighted average cost of capital? There is no rule like that. It is minimum weighted average cost of capital. That's what we can say. So, core basis on the basis of which this R can be determined in real life is weighted average cost of capital. How to calculate that is a different chapter altogether. That is cost of capital topic as part of financing decisions, which is dealt separately. But as far as this chapter is concerned, we already know, we should know what is this R. Means what is the discount rate. That is the point to be noted. Sometimes it may not be given directly. Sometimes in the question itself it may be given that the overall cost of capital of the company or weighted average cost of capital of the company is so much. That itself can be taken as required rate of return. But again, in real life, is it going to be always the same? Not necessarily. It can be anything more than that. In general, nobody would like to get a return exactly equivalent to their cost of capital. They want to get something extra over and above their cost of capital. So, cost of capital is nothing but the cost of their sources of finance. From different sources, they may raise the funds. That is all part of financing, wherein they can get funds from equity, debt, preference, whatever. Each of them carries a cost for the company because company is supposed to service that finance in the form of interest for the debt, preference dividend or equity dividend in the case of the share capital. But whatever it is, the cost of capital ultimately is going to be the bare minimum rate of return that a company would like to earn. So that is definitely a minimum rate of return, not maximum rate of return. So what can be maximum? There is no limit. How can there be a maximum? If anyone asks you, let us say if you have some money with you, what is the return that you expect on that money as return on your investment? Your answers will not be same. Somebody will tell 10%, somebody will tell 20%, somebody will tell 40%, somebody can tell 1000%. Depending upon your expectations, your requirements, you will tell whatever number which comes into your mind. But organizations cannot work like that. So usually what happens is, what they do is, they will take definitely the weighted average cost of capital into consideration, yes, plus something what they will add as some premium to that, so that they have some rate of return, that is desired rate of return, required rate of return, whatever the name we give it to that. So this R, the discount rate, can be having many names. It can be called weighted average cost of capital, can be used as R. Overall cost of capital, weighted average cost of capital, both are same. Marginal cost of capital is another word that can be used. So marginal cost of capital, overall cost of capital, weighted average cost of capital, required rate of return, desired rate of return, any of them can be used as R. But we don't have to break our heads about R, the discount rate, because in general it will be given in the question. We just need to use that discount rate in order to discount the cash flows that we already would have developed. So that is the first point to be noted, that discount rate and computation of discount factors or present value interest rate factors is one of the aspects. Present value interest rate factors can be found from tables which are there generally as an annexure to the book. But again, we don't need to use the tables or refer the tables also. In examinations, it is not practically possible for ICAI to give you all these tables. That is why what they generally do is they give the discount factors directly. PVIF will be given directly, and if at all the cash flows are uniform, they will give PVIF A also. Annuity factors also can be given. So the application of time value of money is a very important aspect here, and that is the reason why before we go ahead with any of these application of various techniques which are DCF techniques, we should be thorough with the time value of money. Without that, any of these techniques are not going to be perfectly learned. So let us first start with net present value technique. That is of course a DCF technique. What is the simple meaning of this net present value is, it is the present value of cash inflows minus the present value of cash outflows. Generally, the outflows happen at the initial stage, not necessarily, but generally. So we can take it as net initial investment. So what is the present value of the net cash inflows throughout the period in future minus the cash outflow that is happening at the 0th year or beginning of first year or now? That difference is called as a net present value. So this can be mathematically expressed like this also. Cash flows of year 1, year 2, year 3, etc. are going to be discounted up to year n. So how they are discounted? C1 divided by 1 plus k. Of course, there is to the power of 1 there, though it is not visible. You should understand. Because this is first year, there is 1 plus k to the power of 1, which is 1 plus k anyway. So that is first thing. Then C2 divided by 1 plus k to the power of 2. Like that, C3 divided by 1 plus k to the power of 3. All these things are there. But are we going to do all these things in a mathematical way? Not necessarily. We can do in a tabular form also. What we can do otherwise is, generally we will do this way. We will take cash flows 1, 2, 3 like that anyway. With that, if we multiply 1 divided by 1 plus k, here is R. What we discussed about earlier as R, the required rate of return, that is what is referred to as k. Whatever the denotions are, concept has to be important. The discount rate we are talking. So let us take it as R. Same, right? C1 divided by 1 plus R. Or if you say C1 multiplied with 1 divided by 1 plus R, both are same. 1 divided by 1 plus R square. Sorry, not R square here. Total. So this is one thing. 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power of 2 in the denominator. 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power of 3. Because we know that the formula is, for any discount factor, 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power of n. That is a discounting formula for any year. Same formula has to be applied. In other words, if we have the discount factors, which are nothing but these things, the ones which are in the denominator, if we have them, all that we need to do is multiply with the respective cash flows of that particular year, then we get discounted cash flows, as simple as that. When you have all these discounted cash flows for the future, those are all generally inflows, but that is not an NPV. That is only the present value of cash inflows. From that, what we should reduce? We should reduce the initial investment, or which is nothing but present value of cash outflows, which is nothing but initially how much ever is going out as the investment itself. Then the remaining is net present value. So naturally, if net present value is positive, what does it mean? That means present value of cash inflows, present value already, is more than the present value of cash outflows, which is good. So what is the decision making criteria for NPV? It has to be positive. So only the projects with positive NPV should be accepted. With negative NPV, they have to be rejected. That is the decision making criteria for net present value technique. So what are the steps which are involved? We don't need to particularly follow them. We are going to anyway do them, all of them. First thing first, of course, we have to determine the net cash flows for each year. That is the cash flow determination. Then second thing, select the rate of return. So first thing is cash flows throughout the life of the project. Then rate of return. Are we going to do that? Generally, it will be given in the question. Once you have the rate of return, you should find out the discount factor for each year. Is it a big deal? No. We can calculate that simply also, or we can even use the numbers which are given in the question. Generally, they are also given in the question. All that we need to do a great job is multiplication of these cash flows with the discount factors. Then what we get? We get present values of these net cash flows, which are going to be occurring in future. That's it. From that, the total is present value of cash flows. From that, deduct the initial investment, you got NPV. And what is the decision criteria? As we already discussed just now. If NPV is greater than or equal to 0, accept the proposal. If NPV is less than 0, reject the proposal. So less than 0, definitely reject the proposal. Equal to 0 is a choice of the management generally, because if NPV is equal to 0, that is not actually a bad project, but at least it is covering the weighted average cost of capital or the required rate of return. Required rate of return it is giving, right? Let us say if the required rate of return for a company is 15%. If NPV of the project is 0, that means definitely the project is giving 15%, exactly 15% it is giving, which is okay. So 0 is also not a problem, that can be accepted. Again, that depends upon the management's decision. But logically, technically, 0 NPV also is okay. It is not completely a bad thing. But negative NPV, definitely no. Negative NPV means what? Means this particular investment is giving some return which is definitely less than the required rate of return. Then only the present value of cash inflows will be less than the present value of cash outflows. Common sense. If benefits are less than the cost, why would you accept that? You will not accept that. So that will be rejected if NPV is negative. So NPV greater than or equal to 0 is still okay. Less than 0 should definitely be rejected. So that is the main aspect to be noted for the decision making criteria for NPV. In case of mutually exclusive projects, means there are 3 projects, only one of them you can accept. Of course, assuming all of them having same type of capital requirements, then which project will you accept? Naturally, the one with highest NPV is a good project. That is the selection criteria in case of mutually exclusive projects. Once again, when this can be applied like that, when the outflow or investment is same. If investment is not same, then the decision is going to be completely different. That is the purpose why we have other techniques like profitability index, which we will discuss later. But with the same level of investment, if there are 3 projects within which only one you can select, then naturally you will select a project with highest NPV. That is the criteria if there are mutually exclusive projects. Now let us just simply apply the technique of NPV in this illustration 3 only for general understanding. These are very basic questions for practice so that we can understand the computational aspects. Illustration 3 says compute net present value for a project with a net investment of 1 lakh rupees and net cash flows for year 1 55,000, year 2 80,000 and for year 3 15,000. Company's cost of capital is 10%. So in the question we have to first definitely identify what is our discount rate. How is it calculated? We don't care. It is given 10%, that's all. And PVIFs at 10% are given already. When they are given in the question, usually which they will be given, you have to use them only. Don't calculate separately. That will be not a correct idea. So we can do or use similar type of presentation for computation of NPV, any level of project, whatever the type of project. So naturally first will be the heading statement showing computation of net present value of the project. Then you will need to have these columns: year, then cash flows, then let us technically call it as PVIF, but specifically write what is the percentage of discount factor on top of it so that it is clear. Okay, so here it is. Just write it in the bracket. 10%. It has to be clearly written there. Right? Then, so we have discounted cash flows. That's it. Here we can take from 0 directly. One, 2, 3. In this case, how many years are there? 3 years only. 1, 2, 3. That's all. And one more thing. Here 0 cash flows are outflows. Outflows have to be taken as negative, naturally. So year 0, what was the net investment as given in the question? 1 lakh minus that is negative. Cash outflow, investment is an outflow. That happens now. And naturally, what will be the PVIF for that? 1. So what is the discounted cash flow? It will be naturally multiplication of these two. So that is not going to be any different from the original cash flow. So that is year 0. Year 1, 2, 3, 55, 80, 15. 55,000, 80,000, 15,000 are the cash flows which are going to occur. But are they really worth that much? No, they are not worth that much. They are worth less than that, because the present value of them is going to be only 0.909 for 1 rupee. 0.909 for 1 rupee means for 55,000 rupees, how much will that be? This much only. Same way, 0.826. Same way for 0.5751. So these are the discount factors or PVIFs which are already given at the rate of 10%. So all that we need to do to find out discounted cash flow is multiply the cash flows with the present value interest rate factors, which we did for year 1 already. Now let us do for year 2. 80,000 multiplied with that year's PVIF. Then year 3, 15,000 multiplied with that year's PVIF. We got all the present value of cash flows. Total of all of them is the net present value. So you have to do these calculations on paper with the calculator. Total of all of them is 27,340. So what did we do effectively here? We have taken the present value of cash inflows for 3 years, which is 127,340. From that we have reduced the initial cash outlay, that is 1 lakh. So the net present value is nothing but present value of cash inflows minus initial investment, as the formula says. We don't need to do all of that. Straight away in any question you can take year 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. That is better way of presentation also, and computations also will be relatively easier. So the total finally you will get net present value directly. Alternatively, you will not do this. You will only do this 1, 2, 3 years only cash flows you will take. At the last stage you will say less initial cash outlay. How much is that? 1 lakh. Then you got 127,340 minus 1 lakh, 27,340. This is the net present value. Like this also it can be shown. There is no problem with that. But again, as I said, it is easier also and it is good also to show exactly the nature of the cash flows in one table. That will be better way of presentation, and it will be easily calculated also in one shot. So that is the net present value, 27,340. Of course, if the recommendation is asked, the project is definitely feasible, good, because the NPV is positive. That's all. Now, let us go to illustration 4. ABC Limited is a small company that is currently analyzing capital expenditure proposals for purchase of equipment. The company uses the net present value technique to evaluate the projects. The capital budget is limited to 5 lakhs rupees, which ABC Limited believes is the maximum capital it can raise. So maximum 5 lakhs only it can use. The initial investment and projected net cash flows for each project are shown below. Already everything is given. It is only just calculation that we need to do. Cost of capital of ABC Limited is 12%. Means this is the discount rate. If nothing else is mentioned, this itself is the discount rate. You are required to compute the NPV of the different projects. Project A, B, C, D. Only NPVs you have to find out. This is only for practice. Once again, we can take the same table, but here instead of 10%, this has to be 12%, because that is the discount rate. In the question, the discount factors are not given. Discount factors are not given in the question. So there are two possibilities when they are not given. One is to refer to the tables. Second one is we can calculate ourselves. So first of all, let us take out these cash flows and these things. And we can have the cash flows also for different projects, because we don't have one project here, we have multiple projects. Or we can do separately also. Anyway, these type of questions are not for exams, it was only for practice basically. So cash flows. Let us take separately so that it can be visible in front of us rather than. So let us take one by one, project A, B, C, D separately. Project A first. Okay. So here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 years are there. First, simply what you have to do is copy paste the cash flows, but understand the sign. It will not be given in the question itself, not necessarily. You should understand that. Initial investment is outflow. These are all inflows. Both are not having same direction. Both are different direction. For project A, 2 lakhs is going to be the initial outlay. Later on, 50,000 is going to be the direct cash inflows each year. Now, we need PVIF. Of course, for year 1, it will be 1 only always. We need PVIF for the other years. How it can be done? 1 divided by 1 plus r to the power of n. So on calculators, you do like this. 1 divided by 1.12 because rate here is 12%. 1 plus r, 1 plus 0.12, 12% is 0.12, that is 1.12. So 1 divided by 1.12, whatever that amount is, that is the PVIF for the first year at the rate of 12%. If you refer to tables also, it will be more or less the same. But if you do it on calculator, take only 3 or 4 decimals maximum. Answer will be slightly different because I am doing it on computer. Computer will take so many decimals, which is not possible for you to take in real life on paper. So whatever it is, visible are only 3, that is okay. But computer will not take only them. It will take a little bit more decimals also because it is not visible, but still they are there. Do we need all of them? Are we going to do like that in the exams? Definitely not. Not possible also. So don't worry about that. Simply, you just have to use 3 or 4 maximum decimals. Don't use 2 decimals. That is too less accurate. When is all this? Only when PVIFs are not given in the question. If they are given in the question, you take whatever it is given. Then there are no other extra calculations which need to be done for PVIF. So now, what we got? 1 divided by 1 plus r to the power of n. 0th year, it will be naturally 1, we know that. First year, 1 divided by 1.12. Then we need that divided by 1.12. Whatever the earlier one divided by 1.12, that gives 1 by 1.12 square. Then that divided by 1.12, whatever the earlier one, divided by 1.12 gives 1.12 to the power of 3. Like that, if you go ahead with further calculations, you will get these PVIFs. Again, I am repeating, on calculator you have to do like this. 1 divided by 1.12 equal to, whatever comes, write it down on paper. You don't have the facility of directly getting it presented on the sheet. You have something called pen and paper, you have to use them. 0.893. That divided by 1.12 gives the next one. That divided by 1.12 gives the next one. That divided by 1.12 gives the next one. Like this, you can easily calculate the PVIFs. Some calculators, I'm not sure all of you have the same calculators. So check this if it is working. 1 divided by 1.12 press equal to, you got 0.8928 something, whatever it is, 0.893 you can write. Then just press equal to, don't press anything else. If 0.797 is coming, that means your calculator has this feature. After that, you just need to press equal to, equal to, equal to. You don't need again every time to press divided by 1.12, divided by 1.12, not required. So use the calculator carefully according to the features available in your calculator and find out these PVIFs. Then naturally the next step is multiplication of the cash flows with the PVIFs. You have to do that on paper. Then total all of them. Then that gives around 19,761 as negative NPV. Here why is it 19,750? Because of rounding. Here only three decimals are taken. As I said, computer will take so many decimals, so it will give more accurate figure. There is nothing like you have to get 19,761. No. If you get anything around that also, it's okay. 19,750, 760, somewhere in between that also is okay, no problem. Don't waste time with these small rounding differences. So that is definitely negative NPV for project A. So that is calculated, keep it aside. But should we really do all this, to be frank? We don't need to. Why? Because the cash inflows here are uniform. And we know very well when the cash inflows are uniform, we can use a technique called as annuity. Only when cash flows are uniform, then only we can use annuity. Otherwise, we cannot use annuity. What is annuity? Annuity is nothing but the sum total of the PVIFs. What is the sum total of PVIFs? If you even look at the annuity table in the annexure, you will get the same answer. The sum total of the PVIFs approximately is 3.6048. So, instead of multiplying 50,000 with this, again 50,000 with this, take 50,000 as common, total all of them. That is what is present value interest rate factor, annuity. So PVIF A at 12% for 5 years is 3.6048. All that you need to do is simply multiply that with the 50,000, which is the same periodic cash inflow, which is a uniform cash flow that is occurring. You will get present value of cash inflows. Of course, that is not NPV. From that, you have to deduct the initial investment, then you will get still same NPV. So this is another way of doing it. In fact, in questions where the uniform cash flows are there, annuity factors generally will be given. In that case, you can straight away multiply that annuity factor with the periodic cash flows to get present value of cash inflows, then deduct the original investment, you will get NPV in a much quicker manner. But of course, since this problem is asking not only for one project, for all the projects, even for presentation purposes, it is given in the solution also that separately, each of the years, the cash flows or discounted cash flows have been calculated. That is for project A. That is for project A. Now, let us move on to project B. Another project, completely different project. Years are same, cash flows will be different. PVIFs will be same because the company's cost of capital is not going to be different. It is same as 12%. So PVIFs are same. All that you have to change in the calculations once again on paper is what are the cash flows related to project B. Copy paste from the question. 1,90,000 is outflow minus 1,90,000. Then afterwards 40, 50, 70, 75, 75. So 40,000, 50,000, 70,000, 75,000 and again 75,000. That's all. Of course, you have to do it on paper, so you will take more time naturally. But if it is multiplied, multiplication is nothing to be explained. You have to do that. 40,000 multiplied with the same PVIF, you will get this. Again 50,000 multiplied with this, you will get this. Total all of them, including the minus 190,000, you get an NPV of 25,619, approximately 25,000. Here in this case 635. It's okay. Around 25,600. Anywhere around that, if you got it, it is okay. That is for project B. Now, project C. Again, what changes? Only cash flows change. PVFs are going to be same. Take from project C the cash flows given in the question. 2,50,000 is the outflow initially. Then 75, 75, 60, 80, 1 lakh. 75, 75, 60, 80, thousands, 1 lakh. That's all. Multiplying with the same PVIFs, you get discounted cash flows. So now the NPV is around 27,000 rupees. So that is the NPV of project C. Do it once again on paper. Of course, you will take more time. On paper, you have to write project name, then all this table, PVIF, cash flows, computation, everything has to be shown. So for project D, how much is NPV? Let us find that out. Cash flows are 2,10,000 minus, of course, minus 2,10,000. Then 75, 75, 60, 40, 20. So 75, 75, 60, 40, 20,000. So here it is giving a negative NPV. Project D is also giving approximately 3,750, 3,770. That's okay. Negative NPV is there for project D. So project A and project D outright we can reject them because both of them are giving negative NPV. A also was giving negative NPV. That was 19,700 approximately negative, and D also is giving a negative NPV. Only two projects which are okay are B and C. Question is not asked about whether which project should be taken up and all like that. If, for example, these projects are mutually exclusive, then the decision making will be different. Since the question never said about they are mutually exclusive or anything like that, there is no particular information about it. It only said that capital budget is limited to 5 lakhs. That is the maximum amount it can raise. So when nothing is mentioned about whether the projects are mutually exclusive or not, can project B and C both be taken up? Yes, they can be taken up because they are within the overall budget of 5 lakhs. 2 lakh 50 plus 1 lakh 90 is only 4 lakh 40,000. Still within the overall budget of 5 lakhs. Since both project B and C are giving a positive NPV, they can be taken up. Both can be taken up. Again, only when if they are not mutually exclusive. If they are mutually exclusive, then the decision making is different. Since money is available, there is no problem for money. In that case, project C would be better than project B. Only because the money or capital is abundantly available. Again, there can be situations where money is not abundantly available. That is called capital rationing. We'll come to that later. But since it is given in the question very clearly money is available, if only one project can be taken up, simple logic is when C is giving more NPV than B, better to go with C. But since the question did not mention about whether they are mutually exclusive or not, actually within the 5 lakhs budget, both project B and C can be taken up. If any such conclusion is asked, then only you should write all this. Otherwise, just the question didn't ask any of that. It just asked computation of NPV. You did that. Just have to compute the net present value of 4 projects simply by multiplying the respective cash flows of each year with the respective PVIF and totaling them. That's all. That is NPV. What are the advantages of this method? Of course, one of the advantages is that it does consider time value of money, which is important and which is a very scientific thing. Then entire stream of the cash flows are considered. We are not taking only few years cash flows. We are taking the total cash flows of the entire life of the project. That is one thing. And very important advantage which you should write if at all it is asked in the examination question about NPV and IRR comparison. There definitely this word and this phrase has to be used. Wealth of shareholders, NPV, if it is positive, that positive NPV is adding to the wealth of shareholders. We have to understand this is over and above the cost of capital that is generated. Positive itself means what? Already cost of capital, whatever it is, the discount rate, it is already covered. Over and above that, it is positive. Where it will all go? Who will get all this money? Extra money. Who? Naturally shareholders. So certainly the wealth of shareholders is going to be enhanced when net present value of the projects which a company undertakes is positive. And naturally, if you remember the original financial objectives or objectives of the financial management in the beginning chapter when we discussed the basic concepts of financial management, that was maximizing the wealth of shareholders. And which one is adding to that? Which one is directly contributing to that kind of objective? NPV. So NPV is a very important technique because it is meeting the original objective of the subject of financial management itself. So that is why it is one of the very crucial aspects and techniques in the entire financial management, of course, in the context of investment decisions. That is one thing. And it is using a discounted cash flows. Of course, it is already there because it is considering the time value of money. So each project is going to be definitely having comparability because of this. These are the advantages of NPV. Limitations, I don't consider actually any valid limitations. difficult calculations, we cannot say that. What difficulty is there in this? Nothing is there. And here accuracy of the NPV definitely depends upon accurate estimation. That is with any technique, garbage in, garbage out. If you calculate cash flows wrongly, NPV will come out wrongly. If you take the cost of capital or the discount rate wrongly, NPV will be wrong. So that happens, that applies to any technique. You cannot blame the technique for it. If a calculator is taking input, a wrong input, it will give wrong output. We cannot blame the calculator for that. So NPV is only a technique, that's all. So we cannot say these are really some limitations. Just for the sake of having both sets of coins, these are given. Like any technique, any theory, any philosophy, there will be both sides. Yes, there will be positives and negatives, pros and cons. Only for that sake of that, these limitations are mentioned. Practically, I don't find any limitations are there for NPV. Every company uses that. So it is a very important, crucial and very highly used technique in the real life also. That is the main point here. That is the thing. And one of the things, yes, it can be like a common little bit of limitation, if at all possible to be mentioned, is if there are mutually exclusive projects, the difference in the initial outflows is ignored. That is not what we are really concerned about. For example, in this case, say project B and project C are there. Project B has an outflow of only 1,90,000 in the initial stages. Project C has 2,50,000 outflow in the initial stages. But still, if at all these projects are mutually exclusive, we'll go with project C because it is giving more NPV. We are not considering the initial cash outlay as a basis because we are thinking that capital is abundant there. But in reality, it may not be abundant. There may be situations of capital rationing. Of course, this limitation can be overcome. Certainly with the other thing like profitability index, which is an extension of NPV only, nothing new here. Instead of minus, if you use divided by, this is profitability index. What is the profitability index? Or desirability factor or present value index method. This is very important method also. Definitely in the exam questions can be asked on this also. But the input data is same. For in fact, each of these projects we can calculate profitability index also. How? Earlier what we did for NPV, we have taken present value of cash inflows minus present value of cash outflows. For example, if you take the first project, what is the total of the present value of cash inflows? Present value of cash inflows. This is not the question we are looking at now. Earlier question. Present value of cash inflows is 1,27,340. For NPV, what we did, 1,27,340 minus 1 lakh we did, we got 27,340 as NPV. That was NPV. Now, for profitability index, PI, profitability index, desirability factor, present value index, whatever we can call it. Simply what we have to take is, whatever the present value of cash inflows are there, divided by the initial investment. In this case, 1 lakh, that will be this profitability index. That's all. So in this case, it can be called as 1.273. So what will be the decision making criteria for profitability index? It has to be more than 1. So what is the formula for profitability index? Which is a small change in the net present value formula. NPV formula was present value of cash inflows minus present value of cash outflows, or in most of the cases it is initial cash outlay, but I am technically using the word present value of cash outflows. Present value of cash inflows minus present value of cash outflows was NPV. Just this change, make it divided by, that becomes profitability index. That's all. So that is a simple technique, profitability index. Sum of the discounted cash inflows divided by initial cash outlay or total discounted cash outflow, as the case may be. In general, initial cash outlay itself will be the cash outflow most of the cases. So that is when the present value of cash outflows in the denominator is nothing but initial cash outlay. For technical reasons, let us just use this word, present value of cash inflows divided by present value of cash outflows. That is desirability factor or the profitability index. That is the formula for profitability index. What is the decision making criteria? If this profitability index is more than or equal to 1, accept the proposal. If it is less than 1, not equal to 1, if it is less than 1, then reject the proposal. As I said, NPV, if it is 0, naturally profitability index will be equal to 1. If NPV is positive, profitability index will be more than 1. If NPV is negative, then profitability index will be less than 1. So criteria will be also same. If NPV is 0 or profitability index is equal to 1, both are same. Then only the both will happen. Then it is the choice of the management. If NPV is positive or profitability index is more than 1, accept the proposal. If NPV is negative or profitability index is less than 1, reject the proposal. In case of the exclusive projects or mutually exclusive projects, projects with higher profitability index should be selected. That's all. So that is the computation of profitability index. As I said, we can compute it for any project. All the things also you can compute once again. So let us take the profitability index also for all the projects one by one. Let us take project A. Okay. So what is I'm taking separately present value of cash inflows and present value of cash outflows, which is initial outlay. The present value of cash inflows will be what? That is the total of all these things. Only the inflows, only inflows you take. That is 180,239. And what is the present value of cash outflows? That is 2 lakhs. Then, how much will be profitability index? Profitability index will be present value of cash inflows divided by present value of cash outflows. Naturally, in this case, the profitability index is less than 1. It is 0.901, less than 1. Why? Because NPV is negative. That's it. So, same type of calculations can be done for others also. So, in this case, present value of cash inflows will be 2,15,619. Present value of cash outflows is 1,90,000. Profitability index is positive. That is second case. You have to do it on paper. Then, third case. Present value of cash inflows is 277,045. Present value of cash outflows, which is initial cash outlay, is 2,50,000. This divided by this, 1.108. So that is the criteria here, which is positive once again. NPV, profitability index is more than 1. We'll come to the anomaly of this. Also calculate for project D. Total of cash inflows is 206,230 and cash outflows is 2,10,000. Now again profitability index is less than 1. Less than 1, why? Because NPV is positive. This project A and project D are very clear. NPV is negative, profitability index is less than 1, outright reject. But question once again comes with these two things, dilemma. That too particularly when they are mutually exclusive. See this, if you take NPV as a criteria, project C is better because it is giving a better NPV. But if you take profitability index as criteria, project B is better because profitability index is more for project B than project C. So that is the point here to be noted. Profitability index will be more useful in the cases where the capital is limited. When the capital is not abundantly available, definitely the projects with more profitability index have to be chosen. So the final decision in this particular case, there are so many possibilities since the data is not given in the question. If these projects are not mutually exclusive, as we know already, both projects can be taken up, B and C, because profitability index for both of them is more than 1. Second case, if the projects are mutually exclusive but capital is unlimited, anyway we know that is given in the question. In the sense 5 lakhs is available. In that case, forget about profitability index, go with NPV. Whichever gives a better NPV, that is a better project. Profitability index will not be a very useful tool when the money is available abundantly. Third scenario, if money is not available abundantly, there is a capital rationing situation where we have to ration the capital, use the capital very, very judiciously. Then project B is better than project C. So in that case, B will be chosen, not C. Though C has more NPV, since profitability index for B is more, better to go with that. So these are the different possible scenarios we have to understand. Anyway, as we discussed, as one of the mild limitations of NPV is that it just gives an absolute number and it has a issue of selection, particularly when the projects are mutually exclusive. That is proven once again. If project B and C are mutually exclusive, the dilemma remains: should we take B or should we take C? NPV says C, profitability index says B. Then which is better? Depends upon the situation, real situation. If capital is unlimited or abundantly available, why should you spend less and earn less? You spend more and earn more. So if somebody asks a question, let us say a movie has to be made. Should I make a small movie or a big movie like Bahubali? Depends upon the money available with you, right? If you have money available with you, if you have 1,000 crores and you want to make a movie, make a Bahubali, right? Why do you make 20 crores small movies? Not required. Of course, they'll give some return. They may give some return, but those may be small returns. So the situations in those cases will be completely depend upon the practicalities. Technical things was theoretically, scientifically what, that only we have to understand. That's what we are trying to do here in case of NPV and profitability index. If there is a dilemma or if there is a contradiction between the two techniques, NPV will prevail if capital is abundant. Go for Bahubali. Don't worry about it because you have money. If capital is not abundant, profitability index is better because with lesser investment, you are able to get more return. So in case of NPV, it does not consider the initial investment at all. It only looks at the net present value of the overall project. Initial investment is low, high, it doesn't care about it. That was the limitation as we discussed. That is proven now. And that limitation can be easily sorted out with profitability index as an extension of NPV technique. Now, looking at this illustration 5, just for practice. Suppose we have 3 projects involving DCF, discounted cash outflow of 5,50,000, 75,000 and 1,20,000 respectively. And suppose further the sum of discounted cash inflows are this much, 650, 95 and 1,30,000 respectively. What is the desirability factors for each of these 3 projects is the question. Just a division, nothing else. Inflow divided by outflow. Inflow how much? 650 divided by outflow 550. Do that on calculator. So 650 divided by 550. .18 or 182. That's it. That is for first project. Second project. Inflow 95. Outflow 75. Okay. 95 divided by 75. Don't need zeros also. Just for showing what are the exact numbers, taking it. Calculations wise, you can just take 95 by 75. That's it. That is 1.267 or 1.27. If you take only 2 digits. Then 2 decimals. Third one, 100, 30,000 divided by 100, 20,000. This is very small profitability. 1.001. Very less profitability. It has still positive NPV. How much? 10,000 rupees. See, if you look at these projects, the first one is having a $550,000 of investment and it is giving a present value of the cash inflows or a net benefit of 6,50,000, which is okay because desirability factor is more than 1. Second one is very less investment, 75,000, but it is giving 95,000 present value, not NPV, present value of cash inflows. That is also okay because it is more than 1. Third one is also okay, more than 1, but still what is the amount here? And finally 1.001 only is the desirability factor. In other words, if you just also calculate the NPVs of these projects, if you calculate, then what is the NPV here? 1 lakh. Directly you can see that 650 minus 550. Here 20,000. 95 minus 75. Here only 10,000. So if a project is requiring you a 1 crore rupees of investment and giving you a 10,000 NPV, generally it is not something very attractive. So usually there is no much of inclination towards such projects which give very less NPV with such a huge investment. So that is where profitability index will be useful. Yes, the NPV is positive, no doubt. Even for third project, NPV is positive. But we don't have to go blindly. 1 crore investment. How much is your NPV? 10,000 rupees. What is the effort all for? Unnecessary, waste. So there is no need to go for such kind of projects if the NPV is not very good, lucrative. So NPV wise, certainly the first project is giving a better result. And if the company has 5,50,000 rupees money, definitely it can go for that. If it has only 1 lakh, let us say, it cannot go for it. It can only go for project 2. Still okay, no problem, because it gives 20,000 rupees of positive NPV. So when you look at this, in absolute terms, the cash inflows, present value of cash inflows, if you look at for project 3, very high, yet desirability factor is very low and NPV is also very low. Why is that? Because outflow is very, very high. So that is where this profitability index or desirability factor will help us in ranking various projects. Imagine this company has unlimited capital. It has 1 crore also, let us say, for example. Forget about NPV, only desirability factor let us take. Because the company has unlimited. It can take any number of projects as it wishes. What is the ranking of the projects? Definitely the second project is first rank because it has highest profitability index. Then second rank goes to the first project. Then the third rank goes to the third project. So that is the ranking of the projects which can be done, of course. Generally when this will be done? When there is a limitation of capital. When there is a limitation of capital, very, very tight limitation of capital, then the ranking will be done. Imagine if the company has no limitation of capital, this ranking is not required. Go for all projects, right? No problem, sir. Do everything. Get 1,30,000 overall return and add 1,30,000 wealth to the shareholders, which is good. But that is not the case normally in real life. So, capital rationing situations will be requiring profitability index calculation because that profitability index will be useful in ranking of the projects. So that is the main point here related to profitability index. That is of course an extension of NPV only. So it has more or less same advantages and same limitations, but one limitation of NPV it overcomes. NPV is just an absolute number with just amount which is being mentioned. If I just tell there is a fantastic project which gives you 10,000 rupees return, will you be excited or not? Yes, you will be excited. Next minute I will tell, sorry, your investment is 1 crore 20,000. What is the use? That doesn't make sense. So NPV does not consider that. That is why it has that limitation. Profitability index at least is better in that sense. So it is giving little bit of more return on the overall extra money that the cash inflows are generating. Over and above the cash inflows is given. Though it cannot be directly taken like that. But approximately if you consider first project is giving more than 1 means 1.18 means 18%, right? 118 multiply with 100, let us say this is giving approximately 18% return. This is giving 27% return. This is giving 1% return, or maybe even less, 1.001, 0.1% return. So that much less return it is giving. So that is the .001, right? Yeah, 0.1% return only it is giving the third one. So this gives a idea. Okay, I want more return means definitely I'll go for project 2 because less investment I can get better return. So that is the advantage of profitability index which NPV does not have. But profitability index also gives and uses the concept of time value of money. That is an advantage, still continues. But mainly it is not an absolute measure, it is a relative measure of the project's profitability that makes it useful in comparing the projects, that makes it useful in ranking of the projects. That is the advantage. And some of the Limitations will be anyway there. We don't have to worry too much about limitations of any of these things, except when any particular question about the limitations of a technique is asked in theory. Otherwise, every type of technique will have some kind of limitations. But yeah, profitability index is generally failing as a guide to resolving the capital rationing where projects are indivisible. If projects are divisible, it is okay. If it is indivisible, then it is going to fail. That is a problem. Generally, projects are indivisible, so that is where it will be there. So if a company has sufficient amount of money, then profitability index is not at all relevant completely. You want 18% also, okay, good. You want 27% also, good, no problem. Go ahead with that. Even 0.1% also is good as long as it is positive. So that is where the profitability index may not be really helpful. And once some more times it so happens that when the larger NPV type of project is selected, we may have to forego a lot of small projects which may together have higher NPV than the single project. So in that case, that single project may be excluded if profitability index is used. All of them situations can result in any of the types of limitations. Again, limitations is not something to be really focused much on, because they will drag down the actual advantages or the real usefulness of any of the techniques. Only for the sake of showing the other side of the coin, we don't have to look at that. Yes, NPV and profitability index both are fantastic techniques. Both are used very well, and both are very practically useful also. I should be able to compute both of them, and at the same time, you should understand the interpretation of them also. In case of NPV is an absolute measure which gives a monetary amount, some amount in rupees it will give, whereas profitability index is a relative measure which gives a kind of a factor, a kind of a decimal number, which is not in absolute terms. It is like an index. So that is why we call it as profitability index or a desirability factor. So that is a relative term, and this relative term, because it is a relative measure, it is useful in comparison of the projects, particularly when there is a long list of projects. It is useful in ranking. Selection wise, profitability index may not be a good technique for selection. Selection wise, NPV is good technique. Ranking wise, profitability index is a good technique. That is the essence of these two types of techniques. One is NPV and second one is profitability index. IRR is a different technique. Of course, in order to calculate IRR, we should definitely know how to calculate NPV first. Without NPV, IRR is not possible. We will come to the IRR aspect anyway later, and also we'll try to have a comparison between NPV and IRR. But let us go to some of the problems where NPV can be calculated straight away without any requirement of IRR. Almost all questions ask NPV and IRR. Let us go to question number 5 at the end of the chapter. A small question, 5 marks questions like this can be expected. Cello Limited is considering buying a new machine which would have a useful economic life of 5 years. So first point we have to identify important information. This entire calculation that we are going to do is for 5 years. Cost of the machine is 1,25,000 rupees. That is initial cash outlay. Scrap value is going to be 30,000 rupees. That will be at the end of 5 years. But with 80% of the cost being payable at the start of the project, 20% at the end of the first year. So start of the project is 0 year. End of the first year means first year. That is going to be 20%. So entire 1,25,000 is not going to be incurred initially. So initial investment is going to be how much? In 0 year, only 1 lakh. And in the first year, remaining 25,000 has to be paid. So outflows are not happening entirely in the beginning. Any question will have different type of situations. We just have to observe the situation and take two things. I told you already. One is timing of the cash flows. Two is direction of the cash flows. So 1,25,000 is the outflow, but it is not happening in one shot. 1 lakh is happening in 0th year. 25,000 is happening in first year. That is the first point to be noted from this sentence. And the machine would produce 50,000 units per annum of a new product with an estimated selling price of 3 rupees per unit. Direct costs will be 1.75 per unit, and annual fixed costs, including depreciation calculated on straight line basis, would be 40,000 rupees per annum. Is depreciation a cash expenditure? No, it is not. It is a non-cash expenditure. It will have definitely a tax shield or a tax benefit. But certainly, the annual fixed cost 40,000 is not correct because it is not entirely cash expenditure. So certainly, we need to take out whatever is the depreciation portion from this fixed costs. We'll have to do the computations for it. And in the first year and second year, special sales promotion expenditure not included in the above costs will be incurred, amounting to 10,000 and 15,000 respectively. Read it simply. Is it inflow or outflow? Outflow. Expenditure, right? When is that? First year also, second year also. So these are the various points. Compute the NPV of the project for investment appraisal, assuming the cost of capital is 10%. Very important information which is missing in this question is tax rate. Tax rate is not there. When tax rate is not there, we don't have to assume anything, not required. That means taxes are not there. Ignore taxes. There are countries where there are no taxes also possible. So that is not something very great missing information. If it is not there, not there. Then forget about the depreciation tax shield or tax benefit. Nothing will be there because there is no tax. But concept of non-cash expenditure is still the same. This 40,000 rupees as given in the question is fixed cost including depreciation. Is this 40,000 a cash expenditure? No. How much is the non-cash expenditure in that? That we should calculate separately and take it out. So this is the question. Any question like a bigger question or even bigger question than this also. We need cash flows for discounting, but we cannot do that directly. First step, we have to build the cash flows. So how do we build the cash flows? We build it taking each of the years separately. So 0th year, then first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Okay. We are building the cash flows, not discounting them directly. I would suggest this to be done horizontally. Why? Because you can have any items here, whatever they are. So various items are there. We just have to write them at the respective places. So 0th year, what is going to be the initial cash outlay or purchase cost or purchase of machinery? Let us call this purchase cost of machinery. Write the full forms in the exam. Purchase cost of machinery, how much you are paying in the initial year, take minus 1 lakh, and in the first year minus 25,000. So that is one thing. After that nothing will be there. Don't worry about it. You don't need to put zeros, dashes and all in the exam. Just for clarity I am showing them. On paper you have to just write bracket. In the bracket you write it. Don't write minus 1 lakh. Write in the parenthesis. Negative amounts should be shown in the bracket. That is a more professional way of showing the negative amounts. Outflows in this case, purchase cost of machinery is supposed to be paid 80% in the start of the project and 20% at the end of the first year, which is nothing but 1. Again I am reminding, all the cash flows are assumed to accrue, whether inflows or outflows, at the end of the year. So here it is given end of first year means year 1 only. That is purchase cost of machinery, that is done. Then how much will be the We can take separately also. We can just take the net amount also straight away. So we don't need to take sales 50,000 and multiplied with 3, then 50,000 multiplied with 1.75. What is the use of that? Not required. Straight away we can take it, or maybe you can show it in the working notes also. 50,000 units are there per annum, this machine which is going to produce. 3 is the selling price, direct costs are 1.75, means 1.25 can be taken as contribution. So what is going to be the contribution each year? Each year it is going to be again depends upon the marks and time available. You can show sales separately, direct cost separately, then contribution separately. It is of no use. Ultimately it will be the same amount. How much is that? 62,500. It will start from when? It will start from first year. It will not happen from now. So contribution is 62,500 for 5 years, same amount. Fixed costs are given as 40,000 per annum, but they include depreciation. So show the calculation of depreciation separately. How much will be depreciation on straight line basis? Purchase cost minus scrap value divided by 5. Straight line method depreciation, simple depreciation. So 1,25,000 minus 30,000 divided by 5 means each year depreciation is 19,000. That is included in the 40,000. So other than depreciation, or we can call them as cash fixed cost. Depreciation is non-cash. Cash fixed cost will be how much? Cash fixed cost will be how much? 21,000 each of the years. It is minus 1. Cost, that is. Contribution is a benefit. This is a cost. So 21,000 in each of the years. That is one more point from the information that is given. So we have taken this point. And scrap value, since there is no taxation and all, that is okay. It can be taken directly in year 5. That is also 30,000 inflow in year 5. That's all. We have taken the initial outlay 1,25,000 in 2 different years, 30,000 at the end of the year, end of the life of the project, contribution each year throughout 5 years, cash fixed cost throughout the 5 years. All the information given in this paragraph we have taken into consideration already. Depreciation calculation you can show separately in the working note. Then, in addition to this, in the first year and second year, sales promotion expenditure is going to be there. Okay, sales promotion expenditure, let us call it. It will be only in first year and second year expenditure. So outflow minus 10,000 and minus 15,000. That is sales promotion expenditure. It will not be there anywhere else. All the other things are blanks. Whichever is not there, these are all blanks. Just leave them blank or just put a dash if time permits. So that is the sales promotion expenditure only in the first year and second year. That's all. These are the various cash flow information. So this is how we have to build the cash flow. Now all that we need to do is simply calculate what is the cash flow for each of these years. Year 0 minus 1 lakh. Year 1 6,500. Whatever is total of this, plus minus all are there. Totally 6,500. Like that for year 2, 3, 4, 5. Cash flows are calculated. You have to do the calculations on paper and on calculator. So these are the cash flows. Once you have the cash flows, NPV calculation is just a simple normal exercise like this. How? We have to take year, of course. The rate will be different here. What is the rate? Cost of capital 10%. So in this case, let us take 10% as the discount rate. Heading and all same. Statement showing computation of cash flows for the first statement. Second statement is statement showing computation of net present value of the company. Cash flows are not these things. These are also not these things. So we need to calculate completely fresh. So what are the cash flows? Year 0 minus 1 lakh. Write them. Year 1 minus 6,500 plus 6,500. Year 2 then 26,500. Same way year 3, 41,500, year 4, again 41,500, year 5, 71,500. These are the cash flows. For year 0, anyway, it will be 1. There is no problem with that. 10%, how do we get it? 1 divided by 1.1. 1 divided by 1.1 is 0.909. Do it on calculator. That divided by 1.1, 0.826. That divided by 1.1. Again that divided by 1.1. Again that divided by 1.1. Like this, PVIFs have to be calculated. Multiply them with the cash flows which we already have calculated earlier. Then what you get is present value of the cash inflows. And of course, the present value of cash outflow is already there. The total of all that net present value of this project is going to be 31,730. That is positive NPV, 31,730. If you check the answer, around that only it will come. I told you there will be difference. Don't worry about it. 31,712 approximately. So that is the main thing. This factors is okay. It will be definitely having a rounding error, but the cash flows should be definitely correct. 1 lakh, 6,500, 26,500, 41,500, 41,500, 71,500. That is the most important computation. Remaining is just clerical. Multiplication, total, final answer. That's all. So that is the net present value calculation in that particular case, which was 5th question at the end of the chapter. Now let's move on to another question also, which is given at the end of the chapter in the essay material. That is 8th question. Navajivani Hospital is considering to purchase a machine for medical projectional radiography. All these things we don't have to worry. We are not doctors. We don't need to know any of this. Some machine, whatever machine it is. The price of that machine is 2 lakhs rupees. Projected life of the machine is 8 years. And expected salvage value of 18,000 rupees is there at the end of the 8th year. So 8 years is the overall period for which we are doing this analysis. The annual operating cost of the machine is 22,500. It is expected to generate revenues of 1,20,000 rupees per year for 8 years. Presently, hospital is outsourcing the radiography work to its neighbor test center and is earning a commission income of 36,000 rupees per annum net of taxes. So this is another important point here to be noted. That is an opportunity cost, because if you have your own machine, you lose this commission income. Right now, the hospital is referring this to some other diagnostic center or test center and earning a commission income. If it purchases this machine, that will be foregone. That is a kind of opportunity cost. That will be also relevant while computing the cash flows. What is required is analyze whether it will be profitable for the hospital to purchase the machine. That is the final answer we have to give using NPV method, also profitability index method. Consider tax rate at 30% and present value factors at 10% are already given for 8 years. When they are given, we just have to take them as they are. But do we need for all the 8 years separately? We don't need that. Why? Because the revenues are constant, annual operating costs are constant. Whatever the opportunity cost is there, which is lost now, is also constant. When everything is constant, we don't need to use all of these 8 years separately discount factors. We can take annuity factor. So before going ahead with the question, let us first make the annuity factor ready. Though it is not given, simply what is annuity factor? The sum total of all of this, whatever is given there. So 0.909 plus 0.826 plus 0.751, do this. 0.683 plus 0.621 plus 564, 513, 467, all of that. 5.334 is the PVIFA for 8 years at the rate of 10%. It can be easily found out from tables also if they are available, but again in the examination those things will not be there. That is why they will be given here as part of the question. So just total all of that 5.334 is there. You don't need to do that, but I'm just checking it so that the calculations are correct or not. 10%, right? 1 divided by 1.1. That divided by 1.1. Years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't need to do this, only for checking. Yeah, 5.334335, that's okay. 5.334 is the PVIFA. Now, for each year, first thing first, we have to calculate what are going to be the cash flows. What are going to be the real, actual cash flows that we should calculate one by one. Initial investment is okay, that is 2 lakhs. That's not a problem. That is okay. Life of the machine is 8 years, so salvage value is 18,000. That happens at the end of the 8th year. 8th year's cash flows are different. So we need to know definitely, first of all, year 0 cash flows and 1 to 8 cash flows, 8th year cash flows separately. 0 cash flows is there, okay. That is how much? 2 lakhs. That is given, negative 2 lakhs. 8th year cash flow, 18,000. That is salvage value. That is also given directly. But main point is the other things, which is 1 to 8 years, how we have to calculate the cash flows. So let us calculate the cash flows 1 to 8 years. First thing first, revenue is going to be how much? Expected revenue 1,20,000 rupees. Okay, fine. From that, deduct the annual operating cost of the machine, 22,500. So from the revenues, 1,20,000, 1,20,000 minus 22,500, 97,500 is normally the operating income, we can say. But depreciation has to be also calculated for each year. So how much is going to be the depreciation? Nothing is mentioned about depreciation. Naturally, when nothing is mentioned, we have to take straight line method. So 2 lakhs minus 18,000 divided by 8. 2 lakhs minus 18,000 divided by 8. Show this calculation separately in the working note. Depreciation calculation. 2 lakhs minus salvage value, scrap value divided by life of the asset. Straight line method, simple calculation. 22,750. So 22,750 is the depreciation. Other than the normal operating expenses. Operating expenses is different. Depreciation is not part of that. It is separate. So that is how much? 22,750. After reducing it, we get profit 97,500 minus 22,750, 74,750. We got, we can say, profit before tax, right? Profit before tax. Then from that, deduct 30%, 74,750 into 30%. Tax means 22,425. That is tax. That will give you profit after tax. How much is that? That is 52,325. 52,325. Profit after tax. Okay. Then add back depreciation. That is 22,750. 75,075 is the annual cash inflow, we can say, that will come normally when this machine is installed, because it is giving 1,20,000 rupees revenues, 22,500 operating cost. Then we got profit before depreciation. Then deduct depreciation, profit before tax. Then deduct tax, profit after tax. Add back depreciation because we need cash flows. Depreciation is a non-cash item. So 75,075 is going to be the after tax net cash inflows that will be there from this machine. However, we are losing every year 36,000 rupees by having this machine, because now we are going to lose that commission. That is an opportunity cost. Cost means minus. So 75075 minus 36,000, that is going to be 39,075 only, the real net benefit that is coming out of this machine after deducting the opportunity cost of 36,000 also. This is where the concept of opportunity cost becomes important. Only the additional benefit this machine generates, that only we have to take. Without this machine also we are getting 36,000. If this machine is giving 75,075, additional benefit is only 39,075. That only should be taken into consideration. That is the year 1 to 8 cash inflows, we can say 39,075. Inflows those are. Of course, what is the multiplication of this to be done with? This will be done with 1. So here 0 will have same present value. Of course, negative. But 39,075, same amount is going to be there for how many years? 8 years, and we already know the annuity factor, 5.334. So multiply with that, 5.334. So 39,075 multiplied with 5.334, how much is that? 2 lakhs 8,426. 2 lakhs 8,426. Now 18,000 is the scrap value. So 18,000 is the scrap value. But here you can understand one more point here also. Will there be any capital gain or loss here? No, there will not be any, because we have used a straight line method. When you use a straight line method, already depreciation is calculated in such a way that at the end of 8th year, the book value is 18,000. We depreciated only to the extent of other than 18,000, right? So depreciable amount was only 1,82,000, which was depreciated over a period of 8 years. So book value wise, it will be only remaining amount 1,82,000 is depreciated. 18,000 will remain as book value. 18,000 book value amount asset is sold for 18,000. There is no capital gain, no capital loss. So normally we don't have to get into all this. Simply speaking, when straight line method is used, there is no need to worry about capital gain or loss. Straight away we can take whatever is there as an inflow for scrap value. But what is the present value of 1 rupee which will be coming at the end of 8th year? That is 0.467. That is only for that particular cash flow. It is not happening throughout 8 years. It is only happening in 8th year. So 8th year means only 8th year. So here we have 0.467 as the present value interest rate factor. Multiply that, 18,000 multiplied with 0.467, that comes to around 8406. That's all. This is the calculation part. Then you can have separately present value of cash inflows and present value of cash outflows. Present value of cash inflows anyway is outflows is anyway 2 lakhs. Present value of cash inflows is how much? Add these two things, 8406 plus 208,426, 216,832. 216,832. So naturally, what is the NPV here? 216,832 minus 2 lakhs means 16,832 is the NPV of the project, which is nothing but present value of cash inflows minus present value of cash outflows. But the question also asked for profitability index. Simple. Instead of minus, it is divided by 216,832 divided by 2 lakhs. That comes to approximately 1.0842 profitability index. Selection also is asked. Of course, this project can be selected because present value of cash inflows is more than present value of cash outflows. In other words, NPV is positive and profitability index is also more than 1. So certainly this project can be accepted. In other words, this machine can be purchased since it is giving a positive NPV of 16,832. Also, since its profitability index is more than 1. Naturally, whenever positive NPV is there, profitability index also will be more than 1. There will not be any two different decisions for the one particular investment under these two methods. Decision will be always same. Only when there are multiple projects, then there will be a bit of conflict, possible, that too, not always. But as far as this question is concerned, both the methods will give the same result. Since NPV is positive, and since the profitability index is more than 1, automatically this project should be accepted. So look at the answers also, more or less same. 16,832 and 1.084. One more point here, you don't need to worry about this 03 rupees and all. This is all unnecessary. Don't try to do that. This very, very immaterial amounts, just ignore them. When the decimals will be important in the calculations, when you are taking all of them in lakhs, in crores, in thousands, like that. Here in this solution, 0.03 means 3 paise, 6 paise. Are we really worried about 6 paise when you are looking at a project, particularly with an investment of 2 lakhs rupees? 6 paise is a material amount? No, it is not. So that is all unnecessary. Normally, again, insured material preparers would have done this on calculators, on computers, and they just copied pasted without closing them. So for you don't have to worry about those decimals. Just take the absolute numbers, enough. Decimals are important for discount factors. They are important. Decimals are important. 3 decimals at least, if nothing is given in the question. If it is given in the question, what are the number of decimals given in the question, that you take automatically. But when the cash flows are in the expressed as rupees in lakhs, rupees in thousands, then also decimals might be important. But otherwise, normal questions, those paise basically are just to be ignored. So 16,832 positive NPV, 1.084 profitable index being more than 1 is the final answer for this 8th question. And since both of them are giving a go ahead with this project selection criteria, this project better to be selected, means the machine can be purchased. That will be the conclusion. So these are the various techniques, couple of techniques. Majorly what we discussed today are NPV and profitability index. And of course, application of these techniques is just arithmetical, though it requires accuracy. It may look very easy when it is seen on the computer, but when you put it on paper, accuracy is very important. You have to definitely ensure that by calculating carefully and writing the numbers carefully on paper. Then naturally the answer will be correct. So that is the crux of this chapter also. But more than that, building of cash flows according to the information that is given in the question is the challenge. How to build that? We know the broad principles. Each question will be unique, each situation will be unique, each case will be unique. So according to whatever is given in the question, we should be identifying and able to estimate the cash flows from that project over various number of periods of time in future. And then once we have that, 2 techniques we applied, NPV and profitability index. One is present value of cash inflows minus present value of cash outflows. Other one is present value of cash inflows divided by present value of cash outflows. Both of them more or less give the same result. In the sense, same decision. That's it. We'll conclude the current session with this, and in the next session we'll continue our discussion with a few more techniques. A very important technique, that is IRR, internal rate of return, and some other problems also related to NPV and IRR we will discuss in the next session. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.